I have a little party trick for you today. It's nothing that's extraordinary, so extraordinary that you couldn't have done it yourself. I think I kind of said the last day that we're pretty much done. I mean, I don't have much more to say about JavaScript, so you're just going to see more of the same. But maybe this is something you mightn't have thought of. But it's not really using any code that's new or startling. Do they move things around on me? Okay. Sorry there, no. No. So, this is, at its bones, a very simple page with 4 images on it. We have crisp, mouth, nose, and eyes. Now, they're PNGs rather than JPEGs or GIFs. And that's significant because PNGs allow for transparency. So GIFs also allow for transparency, in fact, but JPEGs don't. But in a GIF, you can only have 1 degree of transparency. So a pixel can be either visible or invisible. But in a PNG, you use 8 bits for the alpha channel, it's called. And so you can, in fact, have 256 shades of invisibility. So if you are doing something with transparency, PNG is the way to go because you generally have more flexibility in what you can do. So these are 4 images on the page, but to look at it, you wouldn't think so. To look at it, you would think there's 1 image on the page. And that's because the CSS file that's associated with this HTML file has put them all in the same spot, one on top of the other. So the crisp is underneath, and then it looks like the eyes are on the top. I'm not sure whether the nose is under the mouth or vice versa. So they're all overlaid there on top of one another. If we just take a look at one of them, just to see, you see that's the mouth there, just on its own. Now, this browser is rendering the invisibleness as white, but in actual fact, it's transparent there. So you can see through that. You can't see through the red part, but you can see through that to what's underneath it. And what's underneath it in this case is this crisp thing. Right? So nothing strange or startling there so far. And then in the code then, we've set it up so that the images are called mouth 0, mouth 1, mouth 2, and no, actually in case of the mouth there's just 2. Mouth 0 and mouth 1. In the case of the great. In the case of the nose, there's only 2 noses, nose 0 and nose 1. In the case of the eyes, there's eyes 0, 1, and 2. And you see why I've done it that way. You'll see why I've started at 0 in a second. So what we're going to do is when you click on the eyes, it cycles through the eyes. You could see with a bit of imagination you could have a good bit of fun with this really. You could develop some, identikit game or something.
So is each button just calling a separate function that's related to each object?
Exactly.
Is it random or is it fixed?
No, it's fixed. So it's cycling through 0, 1, 2, in the case of the eye, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. And in the case of the nose, just 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. And in the case of the mouth, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. Let's look at the i's, since that's slightly more complicated, but only just. At the very, very beginning, I've set these to 1 and 2 and 3. So this is a counter counting through which one we're at. Now, I started at 1 instead of 0, which was a bit mad, but anyway, it's not a big deal. Okay? And so when you click on this, when we do the i's, for example, we're saying the I count is I count plus 1. So I'll add 1 to I count. So I count would go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and keep going. You stop it, you make it wrap around again. You could say something like, if I count equals 10, then I count equals 1. To make it go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, if you want to do something like that. But using the mod here makes all that much simpler, or shorter anyway. So we'll just say I count equals I count plus 1 mod 3. So every time you call this function, I count will go up by 1. But if it hits 3, the mod 3 will force it back down to 0. So it'll go 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2.
How does that work exactly? Because of mod 3. I thought that returns the remainder of something.
Yes. But the whole part, not the decimal, no. This has caused you trouble before, I think. So mod will give you what's left over. So if you do 17 mod 5, well, 17 divided by 5 is 3. And 3 times 5 is 15. So if you're doing 17 mod 5, the 15 is taken care of, and what's left over is the 2. That's what mod does. Gives you what's left over after integer division. So this will go 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. We're saying get element by ID i's, and we're changing the dot source of that to i's plus I count plus png.
If you were going through 4 separate lines, would it just be mod 4 then?
Yes, and you'd go 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3 if it was mod 4. So this will get the thing that's called i's, the object that has the element that has the ID i's, and it'll change its source property to i's plus the I count plus png. Anybody see anything wrong with that?
But without mod 3, there's no condition. So the loop normally is empty.
There's no loop now. There's no loop here.
No,
But when you click on it, it'll add 1 to it.
the
Yeah.
implementation is
It'll-
no limit.
Yeah, there'll be no limit.
So how is it that the mod rate is? I don't really get how mod will make it stop and come back.
Okay, because if I count is 0 and you add 1 to it, it'll be 1. 1 mod 3 is 1. If I count is 1 the next time round, you add 1 to it, it'll be 2. And 2 mod 3 is 2. Sorry, yeah, 2 mod 3 is 2. Next time round, you'll add 1 to it, and it'll be 3. But 3 mod 3 is 0. So now it's 0. So it's gone back to 0.
Does that work with any range of numbers?
So
No, it'll only ever go back to 0. That's why we started at 0. If you wanted to go, if you,
0 and you were going up to 75.
yeah,
that would
yeah,
work.
you could do mod 75, and then you'd never get to 75. When you get to 75, you'd be back down to 0 again. But you're always going to hit 0. If you wanted to go like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, that'd be a bit more complicated.
Yeah.
So what I don't get here is that JavaScript stuff, or anytime you have an implementation like that and you mod mod it, like we put mod, like any number, it will come back to 0 as long as mod is 0.
If you take some number and you do a mod 3 of it, it can only evaluate to 3 possible things, 0, 1, or 2.
And the tree is specified as the limit.
I don't know, are you overthinking it? There's no loop now or anything like that. Just saying, instead of saying when we get to 3, well, we want to go back down to 0 again, you just do mod 3 and then you'll end up with 0, 1, or 2. If you had mod 5, you'd end up with 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. You'd never get to 5. Because 10 mod 5 is 0. 11 mod 5 is 1. Now there is an issue here where you're doing i's plus icount plus png. Icount is an integer. So it would be sensible, it would be a wise precaution really to convert that icount integer to a string before slapping it together. Just before appending it to the rest of it. So that you get i's1.png. Now it'll work fine, but you know, it's something you should do. Nose does the same, it only goes to 2, and mouth does the same, it only goes to 2. So any questions on that?
You know, you were saying to use that mod tree instead of like,
Yeah.
you know, once you reach this number, try to put it back to 0.
Yeah.
Which one's actually, is this one more, would it be more efficient or it doesn't really matter?
Efficient in what sense now?
Like in your code just being faster, or does it really make much of a difference?
I have no idea. The nanoseconds you might save would not account for the amount of thought you're putting into it, I think. It's shorter.
Yeah.
Alternatively, you can say icount equals icount plus 1. If icount equals 3, then icount equals 0. And it'll do the same thing. It's just if you're using the mod like this, you have to start at 0. If you were to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for 5 of them, you couldn't use the mod trick then. You'd have to go like, if it equals 6, then say it's equal to 1. You know, but using the 0 there can make things easier because it gives you this little trick. Any other questions? Okay, a slight variation on that now. And here, when we click on his eyes, the eyes just appear and disappear. Yip-de-doo like. No, I'll just show you that. So, we have this checkbox here. And I've given it the ID, check eyes. And when you click on it, it triggers this function called doVisible. And by default, when the page loads, it's checked. So that's what checked equals true is. And there we have eyes. Now, and this function then basically just toggles it. If it's visible, it'll make it invisible. If it's invisible, it'll make it visible. You could have a variable stored somewhere that would tell you whether it's going to be visible or invisible. And you could set that and use that as a test. But really, this is just taking a shortcut by checking to see if the box is checked. So if the box is checked, then they're going to be visible. If the box isn't checked, they're going to be invisible. So it doesn't actually care what it was the last time. Theoretically, if the box, like when you click on this input here, whatever you just going at it is going to cause that function to be called. Theoretically, if you could go from a checked state, click on it and go to a checked state again, this would still work fine really. But as it happens, it will go on, off anyway. So this looks at the checkbox, and if the checkbox is checked, then it's going to fiddle with the visibility style property and set it to visible or to hidden, depending. So you could see how you could extend that and have a variety of face parts, and you could choose from a selection of noses, or you could have no nose, as the case may be. Any questions on that?
Why do you put the variable in the body instead of the head side?
Because the code that's in the body will be called when the page is drawn. When the page is first loaded, the code that's in the body will be used. And so that's initializing the variables. So we need the eye count and the nose count and the mouth count to be equal to something in the first instance. And then when we click on the buttons, we're adding 1 to that value. But we have to make sure there's something in the value in the first place. So when the page loads, those variables get 1 put into them. And then when you click on the button, those variables will have 1 added to them. They'll be incremented. But you can't go adding something until there's a value in it in the first place. So you need to put something in there in the first place and then add 1 to it. Yes?
All the scripts you have above, like, I noticed you have 2 separate, like, scripts there.
Yeah.
Can you call that script and put that down below, or does it matter where that goes?
One is in the body and one is in the head.
Yeah.
So the code that's in the body will be executed when the page is first loaded. So we're initializing the variables there. The code that's in the header, they're just functions sitting there, waiting to be called, and nothing is going to happen until those are called. Now, in fairness, I suppose they could be in the body. I suppose they'd just sit there waiting as well, wouldn't they? I'm not sure. But generally, you put code in the header, functions in the header, and they sit there waiting to be called. Any other questions? This is a checkbox here. I don't think we looked. Did we look at checkboxes when we looked at forms last week? Or even the week before at this stage, was it? Was there a checkbox on that form? I'm not sure there was. This is what they look like anyway. I modified the form that I showed you last class so that it doesn't use tables for the layout, because we all know that's bad. And I also modified it so that it will validate in XHTML 1.0 strict, which is very strict. And it turns out that the name attribute for forms has been depreciated, or was depreciated in XHTML 1.0 strict, so you should use an ID instead. But if you want to take the new form that you'll find on the blog, as well as no tables, it validates. So you could make that your starting point if you want. If you've already made a start, you could look at the changes I made that would make it validate. You'll need to make sure that your stuff validates. Any other questions on that? No. So here we have Mr. Spudhead. Whatever about cycling through the face parts, I think this here is very useful. Because when I look at this, I don't see eyes popping on and off. I see maybe pepperoni or peppers, or well, they look like bits of sushi, but anyway.
Do you have to do the checkbox for each image, or can you do one universal checkbox to clear everything?
You could. I'm wondering how useful it would be.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It'd be easier just to do one.
Well, you could have a button that could clear everything as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
For the pizza ordering website,
Mm-hmm.
I had an idea for this. Let's say if you just had like an image of a pizza there and you wanted like a checkbox that when they check it, it would show like pepperonis appearing on top of it.
Okay, but I do think that was my idea.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. Go on. No, go on. Sorry. I'm going to
No,
get silly.
like,
Yeah. So you click on that, and you could have a checkbox for each of your toppings.
could they be like?
So you could have pepper, chilies, jalapenos, chicken, pineapple, whatever. And when you click on the chicken will appear in the pizza.
Yeah.
When you click on the jalapenos will appear in the pizza. If you click on the chicken to take off the chicken will disappear. So I'm saying you could use this to do that. And I think that would look really, really cool.
Are they? I know they're by default not hidden. Can you make them hidden by default?
Yeah, you can. Or you could do it such that when the page loads, you make sure everything is hidden. So I think that could be really cool, actually. So instead of a potato, you have a pizza, and then as you're ordering the pizza, you get to see the pizza, what it would look like. It's surprising, actually, no one does that, I don't think.
But it's not necessary you do that.
No, that would be in the bonus round. Yeah. But I think that would look really, really cool. I don't understand why more people don't do it, because it's not that hard. It's not like, you could see why if you needed Flash or something to do it, you wouldn't bother. But Now if you really, really wanted to push the boat out, and I wouldn't advise doing this, actually, but if you were feeling brave, HTML5 allows for drag and drop. So you could actually show the jalapenos and you could drag and drop them onto the pizza. And actually make the pizza. But I would think that's a bad idea. It's too much. The marks you would earn for that compared to the work you'd have to put in makes it very bad value. Yes, sir. If I haven't given it to you already, I'll give it to you in the lab in a minute. It's ready to go anyway, as far as I know. I just want to... In my own mind, I'd given it to you, but I don't think I actually have. So, any questions on any of that? Great stuff, so guys. More and more toys to have fun with.